The show starts in 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, go.
What is up, Nickel City Mafia? Welcome to another episode of Sunday Night Bills Talk. We've got a fun one for you. So I think we were thinking, when Jake and I were talking last, we were like, we'll start getting into the Bills-Jets matchup. But we realized we have 3 shows before the Bills-Jets matchup. So we're going to do something a little more fun. A lot of folks have been doing this. A lot of podcasts have been out there, but we're going to give it our own spin, and we're going to be giving some 2023 NFL predictions for all teams going right up into the Super Bowl matchup. And those have come from Jake Podger, my co-host as usual. And Jake, who's with us tonight?
We got Ian joining us tonight. Mike, first off, I just want to say cheers. We're bringing back the blues for the show. It's only right. They're $1 beer. $1 beer's going on right now, so listen, we're off tomorrow. Happy Labor Day to everyone out there. Labor Day, celebrating a day of not working. It's a freaking incredible holiday. And, college football started this weekend. We had a whole lot of fantasy stuff going on. We hosted a draft last night. I was talking to Ian yesterday, and I decided let's do a fun show like this. I put it out there to Mike, and we are super pumped up. So excited to reveal some predictions and kind of get into detail about it. But Ian, welcome again back to the show. Super fired up to have you. How we feeling? I just saw you yesterday, but I feel like I have to ask that question anyways.
Absolutely. Glad to be back. It's funny because that draft that we had last night, it was delayed, unfortunately. And so we were all kind of sitting around waiting to figure out what to do. And I thought, hey, you know what? Jake and I usually go through and predict. We like to come up with predictions and put stand-ins on everything. And like, wow, we haven't done that yet this year. So I was on my phone doing these predictions while we were waiting around. And I thought, man, this would be a really cool thing to go through with you guys on the podcast.
Yeah, freaking awesome, man. And it was delayed, by the way, Mike, because Blake got stuck at the hospital last night. He was supposed to, so he's on call technically until 8:30, but because he was already on a case, he had to stay throughout. So he ended up leaving the hospital at like 9:30, and it was about he's at ECMC, so it took him about 20 minutes to get to the house. So we were supposed to start our draft at 8:30. Big Al, by the way, made the pick. He announced the first overall pick. So every year in this league, we have a different parent announce the first overall pick of one of the guys in the group, which is awesome. So Big Al announced the first selection. By the way, it was Justin Jefferson. So I feel like he's been going first or second overall in most fantasy drafts, but should have another big year. I think the Vikings are primed for another big season, but we'll get into that soon. So anyways, here we are. Wearing the Bills Hawaiian shirt too. I'm feeling great. Rest in peace, Jimmy Buffett, by the way. I did not wear it for him, but I guess I could say I wore it for Jimmy Buffett too. This is my new favorite Hawaiian shirt. Yeah.
Topical.
I want to ask the channel for a little assistance. Last couple shows, my mic has just been overpowering everyone else's mic. So let us know if somebody's listening out there. I see a few of you out there. Linda West, good to see you. Thanks for joining us. Red, White, and Bills as usual. Appreciate that, Sean. And then Womp Donkey 247 saying, go Bills. Let me know how it sounds. Make sure I'm not overpowering these guys with their microphones. I can make adjustments on the fly. I want you to remember that this is the only place you can get ice cold Loganberry on tap, 50-cent wings all night long, and dollar drinks for the next hour. So grab your choice of drink. Mine tonight is, of course, my favorite Coke out of the can. Not my favorite. Coke out of the bottle is my favorite. I just don't have any of that on tap tonight. I try to order from the folks here, and they said they'll make a run and try to get one of those bottles in for me. Jake, you're bringing back the Labatt's Blue?
Yeah, I think we got to make a run for it. We got to make a push. We need a sponsorship for the season, so I think we got to go hard with Labatt. And I mean, what better way to do it than on this show where we got dollar beers all night long? It's freaking incredible. Now they are free in my own house, which is great. But listen, in Nickel City Mafia headquarters, if you got to throw a couple tips to your waiters and waitresses. So dollar drinks, I think that's a fair price, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, make sure you tip your staff well by hitting that like button and putting some comments out there and smashing that subscribe button for us. I always say drop a nickel on it. Linda's saying I'm a little louder, but I have a soft voice. But I'll try to adjust it slightly here in a little bit. But we got away from doing our wing shout out, our Buffalo Wing Stop places that we've been shouting out every night when we do the Sunday Night Bills talk. We didn't do it last week, but we're going back to it. So, Jake, I'm going to let you talk about this particular one this week, and it is Wing Nuts.
Yes, Wing Nuts. Absolutely incredible story. They started in a Knights of Columbus. I believe it was on Delaware Avenue down in downtown Buffalo, and they really were put on the map. I mean, they've always had fantastic wings, but they never really had their own permanent location up until about a couple of years ago. They were actually discovered by Pardon My Take from Barstool Sports. Big Cat and PFT and Hank went there, visited the owner and his wife, and they brought them in, and they sat there and they gobbled down these wings, and they said, these are the best wings in Buffalo. And they had been to Bar-Bill. So that's a big claim to fame right there, right? So they basically promoted the hell out of Wing Nuts, and it was great. I don't know if it was because of them promoting it, but all of a sudden you started to hear more and more about it. And it's great because the wings really are awesome. They are fantastic. They ended up moving into Froth Brewing, and they also have a location now on Niagara Falls Boulevard. I think they have another location coming in too. One of them is takeout only. I know they have a spot that is actual eat-in, which is at Froth Brewing too. My gosh, I mean, you want to talk about sauciness and a good. I wouldn't say it's overdone with the sauciness either. I think it's a very good ratio. And if you do like dry rub wings, I think you still have to give these a shot just because the flavor of that sauce is so damn good. So, in my opinion, their best wing that they have is actually the mild. And most mild wings typically aren't super saucy. And if they are, it's very just like buttery and bland, and it's not really doing it for you. So, when you look at these ones, there's like a little bit of spice in there. It's almost more like a medium wing. So there's a ton of sauce on it, but also in addition to that, like there's a hint of spice, and it's still got like a kind of different take on a traditional buffalo wing. And there's a little bit of crunchiness in there too. They put a lot of meat on that bone. So I don't know how they do it. I'm not exactly sure what the process is, but the wings are fantastic. I have had Wing Nuts, and let me tell you, they are in my top 5 wing places down here in Buffalo. I freaking love it. So, unfortunately, they don't really have a spot down here in the South Towns. They are downtown, like I mentioned, at Froth Brewing, but their other location is in the North Towns, and I don't like to typically go anywhere north of Ridge Road. So, here we are, down in good old Hamburg, New York here, but I enjoy the hell out of Wing Nuts. So, big shout out to them.
Yeah, my son, these pictures are actually from my son, Brandon, who lives there in Buffalo, and I sent them to Wing Nuts. He had never been there before. This is the one on Military Road. And
Yep.
You're right. The first time he did this, the first time he took a shot at doing this for me, he showed up at the takeout place only. He's like, Dad, is this really the place? You can't even sit down in here. I said, no, you went to the wrong one. And I think they did open up a third one. I just don't know the address of that one off the top of my head right now. But if you look at that wing, dude, how hungry does it make you? I want one of these wings.
Watery mouth, and you see the blue cheese in the background there too. I'm not sure if they do it homemade. Most places do, or they have a special type of blue cheese shipped in, and it's that Buffalo style blue cheese. So I think a lot of people get it twisted that are not from Buffalo. They hear blue cheese. Oh, that's gross. You just put blue cheese on salad. It's not a dressing. This is a dip. This is an actual dipping sauce, and it's very hard to explain. You just got to try it yourself, but it is the perfect combatant to like a hot wing, especially when you dip that wing in, you get a nice little ratio of blue cheese on there. Oh my goodness, it's a beautiful combination, and I can't really describe it to you. You just got to try it yourself, but just check out that wing. It's a freaking beautiful job there by Brandon taking that picture. But shoot, even in person, it looks better. I'm telling you, it's just fantastic stuff. Wing Nuts does it right.
Now, I haven't been there, but you did mention to me, Jake, beforehand that it's not really like a buffalo sauce. It's like a little different.
Yeah. It's like it's a different type of take on a traditional buffalo wing. They add like a little bit of spice in there. There's like some garlic, and I don't know how to really explain it. There's the butter too. The butter ratio is like next level. It's fantastic. highly recommend it. Again, like I said.
Well,
Definitely
hopefully
gotta check
everyone's
it out.
hungry. Get those 50-cent wings ordered and enjoy the show. Let's get into it, guys.
Hell yeah.
Let's get into these predictions. And Jake, I'm going to ask you what division you want to start with. We have both.
I think we start right at the top. I think we go right in the
Okay.
top left corner there because we have guys on this channel that are big time Ravens fans. So I want to talk about the AFC North a little bit. I think the Ravens, I always seem to overhype them, especially on our channel. And it's not because I'm being paid on the side by Chris or Rick, but I think this year they are ready to make a statement. They got Lamar back. Mark Andrews, I know he's injured right now, but I think he's poised to have a really big year. Zay Flowers looks absolutely incredible. I think that defense is on the come up a little bit. I'm not ready to say that they're going to be a better team than Cincinnati, but they're going to give them a run for their money for that division. And then my dark horse team really in that division is the Steelers. And I don't actually have them making the playoffs because the AFC is going to be tight this year, guys. I really think it's going to come down to, that last 7 seed. It's probably going to be the Jets. That I've been saying for the longest time, we're going to have 3 AFC East teams represented in the playoffs. So I had to have the Jets in there just because I wanted to throw them in the mix there. But as you can see, I mean, we got a 10-7 team not making it. We got 2 9-8 teams not making it. So it's going to be a tight race to the finish there. But the Steelers are definitely a dark horse team. They're a really good young team. They've been building that roster the right way. The defense is still very good. TJ Watt returning. And obviously Cam Hayward. You got George Pickens on offense, Deontay Johnson, Pat Freiermuth, Jaylen Warren on the come up. Najee Harris still an absolute dog. That offensive line has been improved. They drafted Keanu Benton as well on the D-line. Like, that team is good. I think they are not a team to overlook. We saw what they did in the preseason. Listen, only take it with a grain of salt because it is preseason, but that offense came in with a mission. They got it done. The defense looks sharp, and that is a team that no one should really overlook. I think they're going to be hanging around right until the very end there. And then when you look at the Browns, I think that team is just very dysfunctional right now. I am not convinced at all that Cleveland got any better this offseason. And while they do have like Amari Cooper, David Njoku, they have some good players on that team. Obviously, Nick Chubb, one of the best running backs in the league. I'm not seeing the same Deshaun Watson I saw 3 years ago in Houston. So that's my reasoning for them going 5-12. I don't think they're good. I don't even know if Deshaun Watson's going to make it through the year. He's been very injury prone lately too. So in my opinion, I think this is a very good representation of the AFC North. I think the Bengals are still the team to beat there, and they're going to be the team to beat in the AFC. So until someone else proves them wrong outside of maybe the Chiefs, I think their roster, the way it's built, they actually got better this offseason. So I know Joe Burrow's hurt, but they're here to stay as kings of the AFC North.
So just for the folks, Jake, because most folks might be listening to this on the phone or may not have, and the print is kind of small here, and maybe you did this. I was just kind of listening in to make sure my mic wasn't too loud, but make sure you're announcing the wins and losses for each of the teams.
Yes. So the Bengals, we got 13-4. I got the Ravens at 12-5. So the Bengals I actually have with the number 1 seed in the AFC overall, and then I have the Ravens with the 5 seed. I have the Steelers with the 8 seed, unfortunately not making the playoffs, 10-7, and then the Browns finishing 5-12. So it's going to be a tight division. I do think there's a chance that maybe 3 of those teams go to the playoffs, but like I said, I wanted to have the Jets in there in the mix just to make it a little more interesting, especially with our AFC East Summit channel, which you guys should check out because there's a lot of bantering going on in there, and man, it just fires me up to have that potential of 3 AFC East playoff teams.
Yeah, so let's go to Ian's predictions. You guys are kind of close in this particular division here. So, Ian, why don't you talk about how you graded yours?
Yeah, so I want to preface this by saying when I was going through this, I wasn't really paying attention to record. I was mainly just going through week by week, seeing who I would personally think would win the game. So, like, do I think, for example, I have like the Jets at 6-11. I don't think they're going to make the playoffs, but I don't think they're going to be 6-11 either. I think I have to mention that. But generally speaking, Jake and I are almost in complete agreement on the AFC North. I can't really see any fault with either of our arguments. Yours is that you would keep the Steelers out because of the Jets,
Right.
but mine is the Chargers for sure. I have to have the Chargers over there. I just think that team is like
They're so
just
good.
2 or 3 close game like winning field goals or whatever away from being that 12-5 team that we all think that they can be. But basically, as far as records go, I have the Bengals at 12-5, the Ravens at 11-6, the Steelers at 9-8, just missing out, and then I think too, the Browns at 4-13, because I would agree that just Deshaun doesn't look the same, and you do have Nick Chubb, but that's certainly not enough to carry the offense. And I could see them faltering quite a bit this year.
So I agree with both of yours, your top three. I think the Browns are going to be a lot better, guys. I think they're going to be at least double those wins. I think you're going to be looking at 8-9 wins, and good defense, good run game, quarterback back for his second year, Deshaun Watson. I think you're going to see a different team this year. So that's the only one I disagree with you. I'd love to hear what the channel's thinking about your AFC North predictions, but everything else looks spot on to me. Let's move on to the next one, Jake. And why don't we go
quick?
to,
this is a good comment by Sean. He's saying that we haven't seen the same Lamar since 2019. I actually disagree with that. I think injuries have gotten in the way of that, but I think he's still playing very good football. I still think he's a very good quarterback. I understand that he hasn't played a full season. He's not that MVP Lamar, but I only think it's just because he's been banged up, so we haven't been able to see that. But when he's in there, he's still brilliant, and I think he's a really, really good quarterback and an underrated pocket passer. Just signed a major deal with them, so good for him. Freaking love it. J.K. Dobbins coming back too. You got Rashad Bateman on that team. I mean, I think they have a lot of good pieces there. And I'm not like super sold on OBJ coming back and going off and being OBJ from the Giants. Everyone thinks that OBJ is like the savior here. No, I think there are a lot of other weapons on that team that are even better. Zay Flowers, what a freaking draft pick by them. That's a guy that I wanted the Bills to take. Fortunately, we were still able to get Dalton Kincaid, but Zay Flowers is going to be an absolute weapon in this league. I think he could be like Steve Smith 2.0, like I mentioned in our early draft process videos.
Yeah, so Lamar Jackson, Jake, just to add to what you're saying there, last year he was dinged up. He's been dinged up the past couple of years, but last year he was playing without a contract, and he's got paid. He got paid now. So I feel like last year, and I don't mean any disrespect for Lamar, but I think he could have played later in the season. That's just my opinion, but he was holding out. He's protecting himself, and they could have made the playoffs, and you hate to see that, but I totally understand it. That guy gets on the field, and he doesn't have a contract, and all of a sudden blows out his knee. He's done for his career, and he just ruined his opportunity to get a nice payday, and he got it. So I think you're going to see Lamar going all out. I heard he came in a little bit bigger this year, and yeah, I love that team. That team, and again, not because we have guys on our channel that are Ravens fans, not because my son has them as his second favorite team this year.
How about that?
But
developing story.
Just a good team right there. And well, I think we'll see Lamar. And Sean does bring up a good point. He has been dinged up over the last couple of years. And if that hits them again, then of course that number changes drastically.
Yeah.
Good
yeah.
stuff.
The thing too with Lamar is like I get all of the knocks on him because I've never been a big Lamar fan. I think most of the time he just kind of runs around and like he just kind of waits for the dude to be wide open and just throws it to him. But the team itself is almost exactly the same as the team was last year, and they made the playoffs at 10-7, and that's kind of what I think is going to happen with them. It's like the team is going to be exactly the same. I don't think there's any ups or downs that were so serious that they're going to either go crazy this year or be horrible. You know what I mean?
Yeah. All right, Jake, you want to take it with the AFC East?
Yeah. Let's get right into it. So I've been saying these records for like the last 3 months, so I felt like I had to keep them the same. I'm not changing my mind. I'm not falling away from this one bit. I think it's going to be obviously a very competitive division. I actually have the Bills splitting games with the Dolphins and Jets throughout the regular season. I do have us winning that first game against the Jets, by the way. I'm going to give a score prediction, an early score prediction, because I probably won't be on our pregame show. I'm going to say Bills win that 27-21. So you could put that in your pocket, keep that, and then replay it on the postgame show. But I really I love, first off, like obviously it's scary now. Obviously we have some really good talent in the AFC East. Everyone is sort of anointing the Jets as a Super Bowl team. I definitely think they got better without a doubt. Breece Hall is also coming back from injury. Now you have Delvin Cook and Garrett Wilson, and Aaron Rodgers to Garrett Wilson looks like an incredible connection. So I do think that he makes them a much better team and he elevates them to another level. Now, whether that's a Super Bowl contender, that's really to be determined. I have the Jets just kind of sneaking into the playoffs here at 10-7. I still think personally that Miami is the team to beat because when healthy, they are very dangerous. Now, their offensive line has always been an issue for them, but I love, Mike McDaniel's offense. He's really able to utilize the weapons that he has, and there's so much damn speed on that offense. I feel like they still are the team to beat, and I have a feeling that we're going to go into that last game of the season against Miami. It might be flexed to a night game, and it's going to be for the division. So I have the Bills finishing 13-4, winning that last game against Miami, losing one early on in the season. And I know Brett, I think he said he's going to that game, so that's unfortunate. I hope they don't lose that for him. But my feeling on that is, I think, like I said, we split those games with the Dolphins and Jets. So Bills 13-4, taking the number 2 seed in the AFC in general. Dolphins at the 6th seed, Jets at the 7th seed. Dolphins going 11-6, Jets 10-7. And the Pats, I feel like they always just sort of hang around. They're still a well-coached team. And while that roster has just kind of been pieced together, they still have some weapons there. I mean, Juju Smith-Schuster is not a bad option. Mike Gesicki's a good option. Him and Hunter Henry look really good together. And I really think that they're going to try to do that double tight end system that they were going to do with Hunter Henry and Jonnu Smith. It just didn't work out well for them. So while their quarterback situation is very in limbo, I still think there's a way that they squeak out 7 wins this year. And that's just because maybe I'm just brainwashed and I'm used to the Patriots being able to do stuff like that. I'm not saying they're a playoff team. I think they will play hard. They'll be competitive. So that's why I still have them as a 7-10 team. But yeah, that's my lineup for the AFC East.
All right, Ian, let's go to yours. And I do want to apologize for any Jet fans that might be in the live chat right now. And Ian kind of explained it. He'll probably explain it again, why he has them at 6-11. So, Ian, let me throw it to you. Talking about the AFC East.
Yeah, I'll definitely apologize for that. It's like I said, when you're going through week by week on this system, it's kind of hard to not get tunnel vision and just focus on like, well, this team is definitely, in my opinion, better than this team, so they're going to lose this game. And then you look and you're like, oh, I can't have these teams being like 0-17 or 1-16. You're like, you want to say the Bucs are going to lose every game, right? Or like the Cardinals, and then all of a sudden you're like, well, you got to give them a couple wins. So this is kind of what happened with me with the Jets. I don't think the Jets are going 6-11, but I do think that what's going on with the Jets is very similar to when they signed Brett Favre out of retirement. I think it's just a failed old guy experiment right now. It's really hard for me to trust Nathaniel Hackett, even though he has experience with Aaron Rodgers, but the dude's going to be 40 in December. And I'm not going to say that, Father Time's caught up with him yet, but if the Jets O-line was, kind of the weak point last year, I don't know how much better they really got there. And I'm worried about him being protected to make those throws to Garrett Wilson. I like the running backs, to be honest, but you're one Breece Hall injury away from that being kind of a disaster. And as much as I respect Jake's take on the Dolphins, they are really speedy. Mike McDaniel knows exactly what he's doing. I think this is a year where you're going to see certain divisions, the cream is really going to rise to the top, and you're going to kind of cut the crap from the previous seasons where, you have these like really tight battles. Like you can see a lot of my predictions. Like I have the Bills at 12-5, a good 3 games ahead of the Dolphins. Like that's really me just thinking in my head that they are the best team in the division, so they should just be able to handle themselves in the division. And I think that that's why I have them at a 5-1 divisional record on top of that. And the games that they lose when I went through the whole listing are mainly against like the other top teams in the AFC, like the Bengals and the Chiefs and the Jaguars, in my opinion, we'll talk about later. And then, I kind of agree with you, Jake, and with the Patriots, because I actually think they could take over the Jets if that situation goes really, really bad. Because Bill Belichick is just such a well-run, knows how to run a tight ship and coach really well. So I could see them even being better than them and still being in contention. But at the end of the day, I mean, it's the Bills' division to lose, and I think that they have a pretty good lock on it.
Now, you do have the Bills. You do differ with Jake as far as having where the Bills sit. You have them seated at number 4 versus Jake, who had them at number 2.
Right, and the main reason for that is in the games that they faced against the other top AFC talent, they lost, basically. Because I have them tied at 12-5 with the Bengals and with the Jags, but in my mock of it, they lost to the Jags and they lost to the Bengals in the regular season. So that's the main reason why they're at 4.
All right. Well, I'm looking at Jake's and I'm looking at yours. I think obviously anyone coming to this channel, they're going to be calling, oh, it's a homer channel. Let's get the heck out of here. But we got Gardaki. Let's see. Gardaki's
Chris
playing
Gardaki joining the chat.
Winning the AFC.
Chris Gardaki.
That's a great name for you. That's a punter, former punter, Mike. Chris Gardaki. Speaking of the Browns, we were just talking about the Browns. Great name for you. Pro Bowler. He played the Steelers and Browns.
So I just want to say last year the Jets were 7-10. They were 7-10, and they are much better. They are much better. And then again, I get why you had the 6-11. I understand if you're going week by week and you're not keeping track of, what their record is, that might happen to you. But they're 7-10 last year. Obviously, they got Rodgers. You talked about Breece Hall getting injured. They got Dalvin Cook. So I think with that safety net there, I think they're going to change up the offense a little bit to protect Rodgers if that line isn't as good as they hope it is. I mean, they can do a lot of dump offs, a lot of screen passes to both Breece and Dalvin, get them into open space. And obviously, we know how good that defense is. That defense can keep them in any game. It did last year. And so again, 7-10, I think they've gotten better. And I like Jake right around where you're saying, maybe 10-7, and maybe a bit better, maybe 11-6. So that's kind of how I have them. I have them improving by 3 or 4 games. On the Dolphins side, man, you got them at 11-6. I actually think the Jets overtake him. That's just what I'm saying. I think, correct me if I'm wrong, is Jalen Phillips out for a little bit? Is he injured?
I did see he's banged up. I don't know what the actual.
I thought I had read something where he was going to miss some time, but maybe I'm wrong. Maybe he's back.
I know that.
Maybe he's back. So anyhow, let's see. Mike, AFC East has harder schedule. That's another thing. That's a great point. Obviously we do. So let me talk about that because I do have the strength of schedules in front of me here.
I think the thing with strength of schedules is that you're basing that off of how the team did last year, which is kind of a tough thing to go off of. I don't really look at strength of schedule till we're at least halfway through the season, and you get a good idea of like how that team's going to go, because you're always going to have surprise teams. It's kind of hard to base that, base predictions off of strength of schedule right now.
Yeah, I mean, look at the Rams, right? Rams won the Super Bowl 2 years ago, and then they, what happens last year.
Right.
So
right.
I understand what you're saying. It is just a good measuring stick to start. Do we have a tie prediction?
I do. I'll be honest with you. I don't even know how I did that. I must have misclicked, and I don't know why there's a tie. But hey,
what division is that?
That's in the NFC East. It's the Commanders and the Cowboys tying in a divisional game, which would be hilarious, especially because if there's any Cowboys fans, they're going to be real upset with my.
They hate each other. I mean, that is like a storied rivalry. Like this goes back to like the Cowboys. They always wore their white jerseys when they were home. So the Redskins adopted that, and they would wear their white jerseys at home just to piss the Cowboys off. And they would make the Cowboys wear their navy blue jerseys when they would come play at Washington. So it's a beautiful thing. I love it. They are very chippy towards one another. So to end in a tie, that's got to hurt a little bit to both franchises there.
Yeah.
All right, well, let's get into the AFC West. Jake, start us off.
Yeah, AFC West. I had a really hard time with this one because I wanted to put the Chargers in the playoffs as well, but then it would kick the Jets out. So I wanted to stick with what I had. I said, hey, we're going to have 3 teams in the AFC East go to the playoffs. So I wanted to stand by that. This is where we get the tunnel vision that Ian was talking about, because you go back, you look at the records, and I'm like, oh, shoot, maybe I got to take like a win away from them here, put a loss on this one, et cetera, et cetera. So while I think the Chargers have a really good roster, started thinking about my boy Brandon Staley, and I love Brandon Staley. John Carroll, defensive coordinator in 2016, goes to the linebackers coach in L.A. Then he gets promoted to D coordinator. Then he gets a head coaching job. What a freaking jump. D3 to the NFL position coach to coordinator to head coach. I mean, that's amazing. You don't see that often. So he is a brilliant mind. I just think at times he overthinks it. I love that he goes for it no matter what, even on his own 20, which is incredible. But situationally, the Chargers have struggled so much, and I think that's going to get in the way a lot this year again, unfortunately for them. While they have the talent, they just drafted Quentin Johnston. They got freaking Joey Bosa and Khalil Mack on the edge. I mean, that team is really, really good. Derwin James, Asante Samuel Jr. I mean, they're loaded, man. But I feel like they might need to have a change up there. And it pains me to say that because I love Brandon Staley, but I think after this season, you're going to see a shift with the coaching staff there. I think it's going to be a totally different coaching staff next season. So I feel like the Chargers, they're going to come close again, but finish 9-8 and unfortunately finish third in the AFC West just due to how the schedule lies and head-to-heads and all that good stuff. The Broncos, obviously, with Sean Payton, are a better team. I think they're a better coach team with him. This is a guy that's won a Super Bowl. He knows his offense is electric, and I think he's going to help Russ a lot this year. But the injuries are hurting them so much. I mean, Jerry Jeudy's already banged up. Cortland Sutton, he's coming off an ACL tear, I believe, again. Javonte Williams, you don't know what's going to happen there. They have Samaje Perine, but I feel like they're just not quite there yet. So I feel like they're going to have a winning record, but they're not going to be good enough to get into the playoffs. The Chiefs are still the top dog there in the AFC West. They're going to finish 12-5, and 12-5 is probably being like, it's probably actually underrating them. They're probably going to end up finishing like 14-3, just knowing the Chiefs. But there were a couple games where I'm like, you know what, this could go one way or the other. So I figured let's go 12-5. The Chiefs always fight hard. They are by far the most consistent team in the AFC in general. And while I said, hey, the Bengals are the 1 seed, I still think the Chiefs are probably really the top dog. The Bills have to get over that hump. Obviously, they just won a Super Bowl, so of course they're the top dog. And Pat Mahomes is the best quarterback in the NFL, and Travis Kelce is the best tight end in the NFL. So we got to figure that out, man. And they figure out how to continue to be successful every single year. It's just amazing to see. So, I still have them finishing at number 1 there. And the Raiders, 3-14. That's tough. And honestly, I think it was a case of just looking at the head-to-head matchups, and I just didn't see them winning a whole lot of games this year, unfortunately. While they have Jimmy G at quarterback, Josh Jacobs, Devontae Adams, they lose Darren Waller. They draft Michael Mayer, who may have a chance to, do some things there in Las Vegas. But I don't know, man. I just don't see it. I don't know why it is, but I feel like they are so much farther behind than these other AFC West teams. So I have only one team coming into the playoffs from that division. It's the Chiefs. Mike, you are on mute, sir.
I was going to try sign language, but I'm still not good.
We can do that.
We're close. It was pretty.
I love Gardaki's playground coming in too. By the way, saying he's very confident with the Colts.
He's very confident with the Colts.
Very interested to ask him what makes him think that they're going to go 13-4. I love Anthony Richardson. Don't get me wrong, but maybe a bit of a stretch. But yeah. I want to hear your take on it. So let's table it.
Yeah, let's table it. We'll get there soon enough. Let's go to Ian over there at the AFC West. He differs quite a bit from you after the Chiefs, of course.
Yeah, I would say if I could do it again, I would actually give the Raiders more losses and give the Broncos a 9-8 record. If I could switch that up. I kind of agree with Jake. The Raiders are kind of at this point grasping at straws with Jimmy G, and getting Josh McDaniels finally is on a new team. He's not just re-signing with the Patriots over and over again, but I don't know. I just can't really see much going on there. And with that, the rest of that division, it's going to be impossible for them to win any divisional games. I think Sean Payton will make a sizable improvement to the Broncos, but not so much that they're going to make the playoffs. And I'll be honest, I have a soft spot for Chargers fans and everything with the Chargers. And I really like Justin Herbert as well. So I don't think I'm being out of line by putting them at 12-5, but I do think that if they're at some point, the whole situationship problem that they seem to have, where it's like a missed field goal or it's a dropped pass with 6 seconds left or whatever it is, that's got to turn around at some point, because I mean, we all believe that there's a thing is the clutch gene, and I think at some point all those failures have got to add up to success. So I think they're going to make the playoffs handily. And then obviously the Chiefs, I mean, they're the Chiefs. There's not really much more we could say. Although it's interesting looking back, I have them at 3-3 in the division. I don't know if that's going to happen. So I might want to rescind that a little bit. Yeah. Well, I might change that.
3-3, but you have them as the top seed overall.
Yeah.
So
I just think they're dominant compared to the rest of the AFC in general, basically.
Well, let's hope that fourth win is the Bills, or the fourth loss is against the Bills.
I think it is, actually. I think I gave the Bills the win in that one, but I'd have to go back and look.
So, what is it? The Raiders last year, they were 6-11. So you have them right there at 6-11. And I have to ask you guys, with Jimmy G, obviously we know Jimmy G's history of injuries, but 6-11, I don't know, it feels like right around there maybe again at 7, but Jake, man, 3-14, what the heck, brutal. Dude?
I know. I feel bad doing that. It's just a case of, I honestly like this website, right? So you go through each week, you pick each game, and I just, between the matchups that I was looking at, it was hard, and I couldn't take wins or losses away from other teams at this point. I just felt like I had to roll with it. I'm sorry. It is what it is, man.
I feel that so much. It's exactly how I felt going through this thing. It's like, but to be honest, like, I would give them more losses. Like, I'm looking at the roster now, and I'm just like, I know they have Devontae Adams, and Jimmy G is a very, like, slightly above average quarterback, in my opinion. And I don't know. I don't know. I don't like the roster. What can I say?
Jimmy G is the best looking man in football, and all he does is win games.
He's a stud. And he does have a hell of a record, that's for sure.
Yeah. But all right, okay. I tend to agree with Ian a little more, except for I'll take what Jake's saying as far as the Chargers go. So otherwise, and I do agree that KC probably is the top seed. Got to keep them as the king until somebody knocks them off.
Fair enough.
All right, well, let's move on to the AFC South. And this is where we're going to get Gardaki's Playground is going to be jumping in here quickly. But Jake, start us off, man.
Well, I mean, he may think that Zach Moss is the savior there. Maybe he's going to take over and he's going to run wild. Or maybe it's Evan Hall. Or maybe it's Deion Jackson. I don't know who the hell is going to be running the ball in that backfield, but my fantasy team would like to know as well. I will say this. I like where the Colts are going. And it was a wild move to bring Jeff Saturday in, but I actually still understand the other side of it. I mean, he's a good leader of men. You got to give him credit. I mean, that is an insane job to just step into with no prior head coaching experience, just to walk in and say, hey, I'm taking over this team. He was an advisor for the team, but really, what the hell was he doing? I mean, he's probably coaching up the offensive line a little bit, telling them, hey, this is how you kick step here. This is what you do in this, in this type of look and all these other things. He's not coaching to that extreme. So I do like what the Colts have done, man. Don't get me wrong. I'm not ready to put them as a playoff team. And just looking at what the Jags have done, being a playoff team last year, Trevor Lawrence looks fantastic. They're getting Calvin Ridley back. Travis Etienne looks like an absolute dog. They drafted my boy Tank Bigsby. They still have Christian Kirk. They have Evan Ingram. They have Zay Jones still. I mean, that is a nice offense that they have pieced together. They have the other Josh Allen as well. I'm not ready to put anyone over the Jags in that division, let alone the Colts. So maybe 5-12. I struggle with their record too, because I think the Colts are going to be very competitive in each game. So I'm not going to say, like, while you look at that 5-12 record, I think a lot of those games are going to be closer. I mean, they may be a couple point losses there. It's not going to be like a total blowout. They're going to be playing hard in every one of those games. So I like where they're heading. Michael Pittman's a dog. Alec Pierce, freaking love Alec Pierce. Jelani Woods. That's a solid offense that you have going on there. I'm just not ready to put them as the division winner, especially over what the Jags have done. And the Titans, I mean, Ryan Tannehill's coming back. Derrick Henry is still there. Treylon Burks, they signed DeAndre Hopkins. And I know DeAndre's in his 30s, but, like, have you forgotten what he did in the limited games that he played? He still went off. He still put up some really good numbers with no quarterback. So he has a somewhat capable quarterback in Ryan Tannehill. So I don't see why he's not going to still produce there. He might not be a 1,400-yard receiver, but I still think there's a chance he can go for 1,000 yards this year. So I don't know. Yeah. And the Texans, that's a mystery too. Rookie quarterback playing. So both the Texans and the Colts have rookie quarterbacks here. I think the Texans' makeup is actually pretty nice. DeMeco Ryans is a really, really good coach. And, obviously it's his first year as a head coach, but I think what he's been doing there. He's been really making some good changes. He's got some veteran leadership there. Brings Robert Woods in. Nico Collins is an absolute dog. Freaking love him. You got John Mechie coming back too. I'm curious to see what happens with him. It's Dalton Schultz. That's another signing too. I'm sorry. I keep going on and on and on. But in my opinion, I like where these AFC South records stand. And I was actually probably most confident with this division, putting the Jags as the division winner and having those other teams fall behind them.
Yeah, let's go to Ian's and then I'll give you my opinion. Now, Ian has the Jaguars as the number 2 seed in the AFC, and I don't disagree with that. I mean, the Jaguars have one of the easiest schedules. I know, Ian, you said you're not really a big fan of using the strength of schedule, but it is a tool, and they have one of the easiest schedules this year. Plus, look at the opponents that they play in their division. So I could easily see them going 12-5 and possibly being that number 2 seed. But let me throw it over to you to talk through that division.
Yeah, I would say if we had a chance or like the ability to like go through every rookie quarterback's rookie season who's starting full time and see how often they make the playoffs, I have to imagine that number is astonishingly low, which is the kind of the base case for, the Colts, especially when you go from, the Colts being where they were last year. And where were they? They go 4-13. No, they went 4-12-1. They tied, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And all you really did was draft a rookie quarterback. And unless it's Andrew Luck again, I can't imagine them being much better than 6-11. I do think it's interesting. Jake, you actually forgot one other rookie quarterback in this division, Will Levis, playing for Tennessee.
Hey, he just signed a massive deal with Hellman's Mayo, by the way. He has Mayo for life.
Oh, that's right. He's
Freaking
got that
incredible.
weird video. Yeah.
Yeah, he's bizarre. He puts mayo in his coffee. It's disgusting.
Yeah, so weird. Anyways, the thing with the Titans is I don't know that I've ever seen a playoff team when you have this crazy of a quarterback controversy going on. You have a second round pick rookie. You have Malik Willis, who was really, really not good last year, but he's obviously still somebody that the Titans have invested in. And then Ryan Tannehill, who was just a probably the most inconsistent quarterback room it felt like for a while there. And they still managed 7 wins, which is kind of incredible to me last year. So I feel like it's probably going to be around that, but they won't make the playoffs. The Texans are such a wild card. I can see all those games being very close, but I think that the Jags pretty much run away with this. And I think as well that they really have the capability, with Calvin Ridley back as well, to take that next step into that top 4 of the AFC. Now, I have them as the 2nd seed, basically because the Bills lose to them in my games.
I had them losing to them too.
Yeah. Do I think that's going to happen? I don't really know. Other than that, the records are tied. But again, I have Jags at 12-5, Titans at 8-9, and then the Colts and the Texans at 6-11. And if that quarterback controversy gets really bad, I could see the Colts or the Texans actually overtaking the Titans at some point in the season. If they're just doing like a crazy 3 quarterback rotation at some point. But yeah, I think I agree with Jake as well, where this was the easiest for me to pinpoint, I think.
By the way, Chris Gardocki did play for the Colts. Any relation to this young man? Young man. I think he's like 50-something right now. But Gardocki's playground, any knowledge, or are you Chris Gardocki? Because that would be absolutely incredible coming in on this show. That would really fire me up. I'm just saying. I love special teams, man.
I agree. I like Ian's Titans record a little bit better. I think, they're a well-coached team. Very well-coached team. And I think that number right around 8-9, 9-8 kind of sits well with me. The Colts, I think I'm right in with both you guys, and same with the Texans. So I do want to ask you, Jake and Ian, both of you have the Jaguars beating the Bills in London. What's going on with that? What's your thought there, Jake?
Well, we always seem to lay an egg against the Jaguars. Like the last 3 games we played against them, it just has turned out awful, and they've been the lowest scoring games of all time. It's probably for the average fan, they probably turn that game off at halftime. For me, freaking love it. But it's always a grind. For whatever reason, they always have our number. And the last time we played them in London, EJ Manuel was a starting quarterback. Blake Bortles was playing for the Jags at the time. Who went off that game? Was it Alan Hearns? I think he had a monster.
I think
day
it was
against
Alan
us.
Hearns.
Yeah. I feel like I don't know. I just have an inkling that the Bills are going to drop that game, and then there's going to be the media's going to be like, "Oh, the Bills aren't real. They're not the real deal," even though the Jags are a very good, capable team. I think that's going to be a close one, but the Jags pull it out.
Yeah, that's fair. They're also playing. The Jags will have been there already, so the
2
Jags
weeks,
are playing back-to-back weeks, so they don't have to travel the week they play the Bills. So interesting there. So I understand the take. Fair takes. All right, so that wraps up the AFC. Good stuff, guys. Let's move into the NFC East. Jake, start us off.
Yeah, without a question. I mean, the Eagles are. I don't know. I think they got better, but I had them at 12-5. There's a couple games that I feel like could go one way or the other, especially those divisional games. The NFC East is. I think it's a close margin between a lot of these teams in the NFC East. I think they're going to give the Eagles the most trouble between the Cowboys and the Commanders. The Commanders aren't on the come up for sure. I love Sam Howell, love Scary Terry. Jahan Dotson's bound to have a nice year. They got a nice running back 1-2 punch with Brian Robinson and Antonio Gibson. That's a nice team. They are building a very good squad over there. They still have a very good defense, very good defensive line. So I have them slipping in as the 7th seed in the NFC at a 9-8 record. I have the Cowboys finishing at 10-7. That offense is loaded with talent. And I think Dak is a good quarterback. I know he just, for whatever reason, he can't seem to win games when it matters. I think he's going to make some steps this year. He's going to make some strides. And I don't love the Cowboys or anything like that, but you got to give them their flowers. And I know they haven't done anything like in terms of playoff wins. They haven't been to a Super Bowl since 95, but shoot, the Bills haven't been to a Super Bowl since 93. So I just feel like Dallas they're a good team. I'm not ready to say that they're good enough to get to a Super Bowl. I think they actually make it to like the divisional round or maybe even the NFC Championship. There's a chance they get there this year. I actually think I had them losing in the divisional round, but still, I have them winning in the wild card round. So I feel like they're going to take a step to win a playoff game this year, but they're not going to get to the Super Bowl. I have them at 10-7 as the 6th seed in the NFC there. Still have the Eagles as the number 1 seed overall in the NFC. I have them winning the NFC East. This is another case where, yeah, of course, like on paper, they actually somehow got better, even though they just went to a Super Bowl. They retained Jason Kelce. They retained Darius Slay. They retained Fletcher Cox. I mean, they drafted Jalen Carter, who's an absolute dog, and somehow takes away hype from Jordan Davis, who, by the way, they drafted 2 years ago in the first round, who was another highly touted freak of nature. So they had 4 guys with 11 plus sacks last year. Hassan Reddick is an absolute dog. They lost TJ Edwards. They end up bringing in Zach Cunningham, which I think that's a solid fill-in for him. That team is really damn good. A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith are unbelievable. They end up trading for DeAndre Swift, who I think is like, it's kind of a flip-flop for him and Miles Sanders. I think they're pretty similar in terms of how they play the game. I don't see the Eagles dropping at all. I mean, 12-5 might even be a conservative record for them. They might end up going 14-3.
Interesting. All right. Well,
and the Giants, how about the Giants? 7-10. This is tough for me.
Yeah.
I think their team is very well coached. I love Brian Dable. I think Isaiah Hodgins is one of those guys where we really let a great talent slip away, and it's unfortunate. I have the Giants actually taking a step back, though, this year. I just feel like there's going to be something that goes on with Daniel Jones, and I don't know. Whether he gets injured, and I hope no injuries or anything like that, but I just feel like they're going to take a step back this year because the Commanders have gotten a little bit better, and I think they're ready to jump them.
All right. Well, let's swing it over to Ian there. And interesting, again, you must have got focused on those matchups, having the Cowboys at 7-9-1. And let's go over
Love
to
the
you.
tie.
Let's go over.
Yeah, the tie was completely accidental, not on purpose. However, my record for the Cowboys is not accidental. I just sense. I could like smell the average 8-8 season in them right now. I don't know why, and I have to admit I don't have like a lot of info on this, but like the Cowboys always seem to go on these like little baby runs where you're like, oh man, they really are the team they're meant to be, and then just they plummet with an 8-8 season, and I just for whatever reason kind of feel that way.
They're like the Chargers of the NFC, basically.
Yeah, oh yeah, they really are. The thing is like the NFC this year, particularly to me at least, seems considerably worse than the AFC overall. And I think you're going to see some unusual surprises, like as we go in on my list later on, sneaking into the wild card and things that you wouldn't necessarily expect. And I think the Cowboys going 7-9 kind of is like fitting the bill. The Eagles are absolutely top of the division, top of the NFC for that matter. I mean, yeah, the draft they had was absolutely ridiculous for a team that went to the Super Bowl. It was the 31st overall pick in the draft. It's just an incredible draft for them. And I think the hype on Daniel Jones is just a little too high, and I can see this being like just a very forgettable season for the Giants. And I'm all on board with Sam Howell, man. And that defense, especially the Commanders' defensive line, is absolutely disgusting. And I can just see them wreaking such havoc on the other NFC teams that are like, they're in this like mid-rebuild era. There's a lot of those around here with like the Bears and the Lions. They're like kind of on the cusp. They're trying to get there. Seahawks in the same boat. You can even throw the Falcons and Panthers in there if you wanted. Like they're almost to the point of contending, but man, yeah, I definitely think the Commanders are taking that leap to the playoffs.
Interesting. So for me, I'm going to give the Cowboys a little more credit here for both of you. I'm leaning towards Jake's side a little bit, but even closer. I think the Eagles, obviously, they have the hardest schedule overall in the NFL. And I think, like Jake mentioned, they have a lot of power on offense, a lot of offensive power. And they split last year with the Eagles. They put up 40 points on the Eagles. The Eagles got 38 points put up on them by the Chiefs. They can put up some, I don't know. I want to see the Eagles were exposed, but I mean, there were a couple games where they definitely allowed some big numbers, and I think the Cowboys will make that closer. I'm saying more like, let's see here. You got the Eagles, Jake, at, where are you at there? 12-5? I'm thinking that's a one-game difference in that division. I think that comes right down to the end of the year. And the big assumption here, of course, is that Dak is able to stay healthy. That's the big assumption. And, of course, he hasn't been able to do that in quite some time. And I'm not sure who they have. I know they drafted or they traded for Trey Lance. You know who their backup is right now? Besides Trey? Do you guys know?
Who are we talking about? Which team?
This is the Cowboys. Who's backing up?
I can tell you. Oh, Cooper Rush and Trey Lance now.
Yeah. So Trey Lance, I know they traded for, but he won't be ready for a while.
No. The thing with the Cowboys, again, I don't know. I have this feeling this is just not going to be that great of a year. Trust me, their offense is a very big powerhouse, and I totally get that. But I think I'm probably giving the NFC North a lot more credit than I usually would in this case by giving them 2 playoff teams. But it'll probably be closer than 7-9 for me with the Cowboys. Probably be more like 9-8. But I'm kind of around Jake's range of that 10-7, 9-8, but still not making the playoffs.
Jake, do we have you back?
Can you hear me? You guys got me?
There he goes.
Yeah, that Wi-Fi is struggling in that new man cave.
What the heck is going on here? I mean, I paid freaking 1 gig Wi-Fi. All of a sudden, it's Verizon knows, man. They just came out with the 2 gig Wi-Fi. That's what's going on.
What's going on? Well, you got those 6 TVs probably streaming.
Can you guys hear me
up
okay?
The bandwidth. We can hear you. Can you hear us?
Yep.
All right.
Yeah, I can hear you guys. Yep.
All right, seems like you're a little lagged there. So, all right. Well, let's. There's a couple questions for you, Jake. Jessica Tennis coming in with Jake. How many winning regular seasons does Ron Rivera have?
That's a good question.
Well, let's see. Let's go through it. So with the Panthers, he went 15-1. I know the Super Bowl year. They had a hell of a year that year. They had a couple of seasons where they were actually, I know one season they had a losing record. They ended up going to the playoffs and they won the division.
That was with the Commanders. Yeah.
Yeah, no, he did it twice. He did it with the Panthers and he also did it with the Panthers. How many does he actually have?
I can tell you.
I don't think he has many. What is it?
It's 4. If you count last season, he was 8-1, which is like the ultimate tie.
Oh, yeah. That's insane.
I do remember you telling me a while ago that, back when 8-8 was a thing, that 8-8 is still a winning season, even though you're tied up.
I don't know. Actually, I don't know if they count it as one or not. I mean, it's still 500, so you're even. So I don't know if they just call that a wash, but yeah, it's not considered a lose. So I don't know if you'd call it a winning season, but yeah, it's not a losing season. So what is his career record, by the way?
It's 98-90.
We're around 500.
Yeah, 98-90.
All right, well, interesting. Listen, Ian, we're going to have you start off because, Jake's Wi-Fi still seems to be struggling a little bit. Hopefully it'll catch up. And let's have you start with the NFC North.
Yeah, so my NFC North is going to look a little weird. Obviously, the Bears in the playoffs is probably sticking out in a lot of people's minds. I think that the Vikings are definitely, them and the Eagles are the best teams in the NFC, and I see them pretty much running away with that. The Lions were 9-8 last year and lost a couple of heartbreakers, but I have a feeling they're going to take that next step with Jared Goff there. Hopefully Jameson Williams comes back as an absolute monster for them. That would be unbelievable. And I know a lot of people are questioning the Lions draft with Jahmyr Gibbs, and the name of the linebacker they drafted is escaping me right now, but they were both kind of like thought of as reaches, but I don't know. I kind of think Dan Campbell's got a plan with that, and I'm gonna kind of trust him to guide the ship there. And then again, my whole thought process with the rest of the NFC is that it's so much weaker than the AFC that I think you're going to see a little bit of a shakeup out of the playoff teams, and that's why I have the Bears at 10-7. Not necessarily because of like them getting better. I just think that the offense that they're going to be able to run with Justin Fields is going to just be considerably fine-tuned, I guess, in my opinion. And then the Packers, you got a new quarterback, Jordan Love. I know there's a lot of people saying that he's looked really good. I'll believe it when I see it, I guess. Oh, Mike, you are muted. You were both muted, actually.
Well, I muted on purpose because, I don't want you guys to hear me when I'm having difficulty. So anyhow, listen, I think Detroit in the middle linebacker you're talking about is Jack Campbell. So Jack Campbell was drafted early in the first round. Man, I was so high on that guy, with the Bills needing a middle linebacker. I was hoping, we might take a stab at him. He was expected to go kind of mid-second round, but
yeah,
they made the right choice. They grabbed that guy, and he's starting for them this year, and it's going to be great to see him on Thursday Night Football. They could take on the Chiefs. And if the Chiefs don't have Chris Jones, it's going to be a really, really good game, I think. And so as far as Minnesota goes, I mean, they lost Eric Kendricks, linebacker, lost him in free agency. I think they take a step back. So I'm not sure I have them getting to 12-5. You got them as the number 2 seed. And let's see here. What did I have them around? I actually have them closer to, winning the division. I'm sorry, Detroit winning the division over the Vikings. So, Jake, are you there? Let's see how the Wi-Fi is holding up right now.
Yeah, I don't know. It's actually clear they're having issues. It's kind of weird. Can you guys hear me okay? We good?
Yeah, I think so.
I can hear you. You almost have, my goodness, you guys almost have identical records between the two of you for this division here. Crazy.
Yeah, it's very close. Yeah.
So
I
go ahead,
I
Jake.
love the Lions. Yeah, I absolutely love the Lions making the playoffs. I have them as the 5 seed there, going 10-7. There's a lot. We had the Bears.
We're
8
losing.
and 9. I had that. I think some good strides.
Microphone's a little rough, buddy. So, I mean, you guys kind of had it the same. The only thing I'd say is, what a huge jump for the Bears, guys. I mean, seriously. I mean, they were 3-14, and both of you guys, you have them winning 7 more games this year, and Jake has them winning. What has he got them at? 8 and 9.
8 and 9.
So he's got to win 5 more games. I'm more in agreement with what Jake has going on over there. What was your thought process there, or to get them to 10 and 7? What are you liking about that team so much?
It could have been the fact that they're going to get 2 extra wins from Green Bay, I think, this year, or I just think the rest of like the lowly parts of the NFC are so bad that I kind of had them there by default. Honestly, if I could redo it, I could convince myself to swap them with like the Seahawks. I'm looking at their team now, and I just feel like their defense is pretty solid, and I just think that when you can. The thing with rushing quarterbacks, especially, is that if you can fine tune the offense, it can be effective for a little bit. And what I mean by that is kind of like what they do with Lamar, how he kind of runs around and then just waits for the guy to get open and just tosses it to him. I mean, I think that maybe it's possible that they would be able to fine tune it to get to that point. I don't necessarily know if 10 and 7, maybe like 8 and 9, they squeak in something like that. Like I can convince myself that they get the same record as Jake, and then they just squeak in with a losing record for sure. That could probably be more balanced on my end.
Yeah. Well, you have them making the playoffs too at the 7th seed, the final spot. And of course, they got Tremaine Edmonds over there. So if that happens, he'd be a big piece of that. And can you imagine if the Bears take this jump and they do get anywhere near a playoff team, and Tremaine Edmonds has a fantastic year, much bigger than he's had for all of us? Man, folks are going to be going crazy about that one. A lot of content right there.
That would be nuts. The thing too is like, you got to pick a worst to first team, or like at least a team that was bottom of the barrel and shoots up. There's always one of those surprise teams. And so far, if you look at like the teams that I'm picking to make the playoffs, they're pretty much the same as last year. So you got to have something in there that's an oddball wild card, right?
Yeah, I like it. Let's get into the NFC. Let's go to the West here, NFC West, and go ahead. Walk through your rankings, sir.
Yeah, so Jake and I are almost completely on the same page, except he just thinks the Cardinals are going to be even worse than I think they're going to be. I can totally see 2-15. I mean, if you got Kyler out for the first 4 weeks and all of the pieces that they lost, it's never going to work out right. The Rams didn't, in my opinion, do anything necessarily to get better, and they were, notoriously just the worst. Going from the Super Bowl win to being the worst team in the division is just really rough, and I can't really see them coming back from that. I think Matt Stafford's probably, it's going to take a lot for him to get that team back to their winning ways. And as far as the Seahawks go, I have a feeling it's going to be very similar to last year. And if not, I could see them swapping with the Bears, but then I just feel like I would have the same teams I had going to the playoffs last year for this year. And at this point, the 49ers winning the division is kind of by default. I think it's possible that you could see a flip there as well, having the Seahawks win the division and then having the 49ers in second and out of the playoffs. But I think with how well coached the 49ers are and that elite defense that they have, I can't see them losing. I like that 5-1 division record is almost a guarantee, I think.
Yeah. So Jake, do we have you? It looks like you got on your phone, man. You're trying every possible way.
This is unbelievable. I just ran a speed test, and my Mbps, my download is 1.62. My upload is 0.16.
Oh my goodness.
I don't know what's going on. I don't know if like Fios is just down. I mean, I have like 1 gig internet. I've never had an issue. So maybe they're hearing me talk about this new 2 gig that they just came out with, because that's some BS, man. I mean, during a live stream, they're really trying to cut me at the knees here. So this is tough. But no, yeah.
Well, we can hear you now.
Through,
yeah, we can at least hear you. But let's try to get through the NFC West with you. Ian's already went through it on his side.
Yeah, NFC West. So, yeah, I have the Niners taking the division again. The Seahawks are, I think they're close. And I still feel like they're going to be competitive. in that division still. They're going to go 8-9 though. They're just going to miss out on the playoffs. It's going to be similar situation to like the Bears, where unfortunately you got to have a winning record to get into the playoffs this year. I think the Seahawks are still a good team. I just think the Niners are better, and they're just more well built for the playoffs, and they're built to last during the whole season. So, yeah, I mean, they really, look at the team: Deebo Samuel, Brandon Ayuk, Brock Purdy's going to be the guy. So you got CMC in the backfield. I mean, they have a lot of weapons to play with there. So it's an exciting team. And Kyle Shanahan, he doesn't care much about your fantasy team, but he's a hell of a coach. And while they haven't, actually won a Super Bowl, they've gotten there at least, and they've been put in position to be successful. So I still have them winning the division at 10-7. The Rams and the Cardinals are just big yikes. I mean, I know Matt Stafford is coming back, but now we got Cooper Kupp going to Minnesota, visiting a doctor, trying to figure out what's going on with his injury. And they just seem like, you can only kick the can down the road for so long. And I always obviously feared that with the Bills, but I think the Bills are drafting for youth, and they didn't trade away all of their picks like the Rams did. The Rams are just stuck right now. So I feel like they're going to regress again. And I don't know what's going on with Sean McVay. He may end up retiring after this year. I know he was kind of mulling it over this year. And the Cardinals, they got a long way to go. Long way to go.
Yeah, I agree with you, both of you guys, on the Rams and the Cardinals. I don't know if I agree with the 10-7 record for the Niners. I mean, they were 13-4 last year. They're still one of the best teams in the NFL. Yeah. And why the drop? Why the drop from 13-4 to 10-7?
I just think that there were some games on their schedule where I felt like they're just going to take some hard losses, and they're still going to be like, I think they're going to be a 10-7 team that's kind of overlooked, and they'll go deep into the playoffs, even though they are a 10-7 team. I just feel like it's going to be one of those situations where maybe like the Bills, like a few years ago, where they went 11-6 and end up going obviously to the 13-2 game. But that might be the Niners this year. Not saying they're going to have one of those games, but I think they're going to have a record in the season that's not like, oh, they're this 14-3 team or 15-2 team. They're not going to be super, super dominant, but they're going to be hanging around. They're going to do enough to get into the dance, and then they're going to make a little bit of a run.
Yeah, I mean, we as Bills fans know it best, but like a really, really good defense, is only going to provide so many winning seasons until you realize, oh man, we really need to get a winning quarterback. And I'm not saying Brock Purdy can't be that. I'm just saying that he has not necessarily, it's kind of similar to how when Colin Kaepernick filled in for Alex Smith and started doing well right away. It's like, okay, but let's pump the brakes just a smidge here with that whole thing. Yeah. And I think, the defense just can't carry that many wins that consistently. And at some point, something's got to give. And I think it's going to be the offense. So they're still going to make the playoffs, still 10-7, but just not as dominant as they were in the past.
Okay, fair points. I'm going to give them at least 2 more wins. And I'm going to give the Seahawks a 10-7 season as well. So let's get into the final division, the NFC South. And Jake, let's start with you while we have you, in case we lose you again.
Am I coming through better? Can you guys?
Yeah, a lot better. A lot better.
All right, that's good. Yeah, I have the Saints winning this division. I think the NFC South is theirs for the taking. They're the only team to me that has, first off, really a proven quarterback. Although Baker, obviously he led the Browns to their first playoff berth in 20 years, maybe something like that.
Yeah.
18 years. I just, I think it's definitely their division to win. They end up going and signing Jamal Williams. They have, obviously Alvin Kamara suspended, but he comes back after week 3. They have Michael Thomas returning finally from injury. Derek Carr is now their quarterback, and I'm not saying he's like the greatest quarterback in the world, but I definitely think he makes that offense a lot better. And see that guy's arms? Holy smokes, he's looking huge right now. So Derek Carr comeback season, book it. Tight end Jimmy Graham coming back, playing in New Orleans, trying to win one last chip there. I think that could be very interesting as well. And Chris Olave, he is like the guy there. He is going to be, and I already think he is, an absolute stud. He's going to have a really nice season this upcoming year, and
I think the Saints are the way that the roster is built. It's just better. And I know the Falcons did a whole hell of a lot this offseason, but I'm just not as confident with their quarterback play as I am with the Saints. So that's why I have the Falcons at 7-10. The Panthers, I think they're going to be one of those teams that hangs around as well. Obviously, Bryce Young coming in. They got Miles Sanders. They have their number one, I think, is technically Adam Thielen and DJ Chark. It's one of those two.
It is.
Yep. They do have Jonathan Mingo, who they took, and I really like that kid a lot. He's got some good size on him. They end up going and getting Hayden Hurst as well. But I think the Panthers still have some way to go. They're in kind of like a rebuilding phase, but they're going to get better and better each year as we go here. And from what I've heard, Bryce Young is the real deal. So really excited to watch him play this year. I just don't think that they're necessarily a playoff team just yet. So that's why I have them at 7-10. And then bottom of the barrel, and it pains me to do it because I actually really like Baker Mayfield. I think he kind of got they did him dirty in Cleveland. Like it's sad. It's a really sad story, to be honest. He's going to give the Bucs a chance to win, but I think the Bucs are like they're in this mode where they're post Tom Brady, and they're just going to be in a full rebuild mode. They might end up trading Mike Evans away. Not sure what's going to happen with Chris Godwin either, but they're essentially in rebuild mode now. So that's why I have them at 4-13.
It bums me out. I mean, Levante David, who signed back with them for $4.5 million, it makes you think,
loyalty.
Man, would he? Yeah, that's true loyalty, man. To be sticking with a team. He's got one Super Bowl ring. Maybe he could have took a shot at a second one, but true loyalty. So, Ian, wrap it up for us there, and then stick around, folks. We're going to go into some awards that we're going to predict that the Bills have this year. So, Ian, why don't you finish us off in that division?
Sure. So the NFC South and the NFC West both kind of have these 6 teams that are not the 49ers and not the Saints, that are just, 4 of them are dumpsters. I mean, you look at the Rams, the Cardinals, arguably either the Panthers or Falcons, and then the Bucs are just going to be the bottom of the barrel teams, probably in the whole league. I think I would probably swap the Panthers and the Falcons, because I'm really unsure with the Falcons on their quarterback situation, but I think that he has a lot of pieces already to start with. I'm not necessarily saying they'd make the playoffs. I would just say I would jump their spots, put Falcons at 2, Panthers at 3, how Jake has. Saints are clearly the best team. I mean, it's really no question. It's absolutely theirs for the taking. The Falcons have now Bijan and Drake London and Kyle Pitts, who I'm hoping is going to take a step. I mean, everyone's kind of hoping he takes a step here at this point. So I think that they could contend. It's obviously it's going to all depend on Desmond Ridder and what he does. But the Panthers are no joke. I mean, they have a pretty solid defense. That secondary is nuts, and they're gonna definitely prey on these quarterbacks in this division. So I think it could be very similar to last year, where you have those 3 all kind of competing in the middle there. But yeah, and the Bucs are just obviously they were 8-9 with Tom Brady last year. So they're on their way out, obviously. Definitely them or the Cardinals, in my opinion, are the 2 worst teams in the NFC.
So I'll take Ian's Saints prediction at 10-7, and then Jake, the rest of yours in that division. I think you're spot on, right around there. So good stuff, guys. So good. This was fun, man. This was a lot of fun. Again, I apologize for Jet fans, and I apologize for Cowboy fans who catch this on the rewatch. But Jake, why don't you share, what's the site you guys used again to kind of do this?
It's let me see, what is it?
It's called playoffpredictors.com.
Yeah.
I think if you just type that in Google, it'll be the first thing that pops up, and essentially it'll just take you through week 1 to all the way to 18, and you pick every single game. You can actually even type in the scores if you wanted to, which is, if you got 10 hours, go ahead and do that. But
it's awesome. I gotta say, there are some games that are like so ticky-tack, and it's really hard to make a final decision on who you're going to end up selecting as the winner for those. And that's why I feel like the Raiders actually only got 3 wins, because it was like, and then you can't just go back and be like, oh, well, I'm going to take a win away here. Like, that's really hard to do.
Yeah,
so you're just in the moment. Like, I wasn't thinking in my head, like, oh, the Bills have to get to 13 wins. I just went off of like, hey, they're playing the Dolphins this week. I think the Dolphins are going to take a win this week. I think the Dolphins are going to, so I just looked at the record at the end and I'm like, oh, that's what it is, plain and simple. So you'll be surprised. I think if you try it out yourself and you just go through each game and you see what's going on, you're going to have a team that ends up with a record where you're like, that doesn't make sense. Make it make sense. Like Sean says, make it make sense. That's what happened to the Raiders. So, yeah, it's a fun site, though. I'll tell you what, I highly recommend it, and it's great to go back and look at it. You can make an account on there. I think it saves. It's saved up through
the
2021 season, which is pretty cool.
It does. It'll save all your scenarios. You can actually upload them, I think, to a database where you can see other people's scenarios, basically.
Yeah.
It's so funny you mentioned this whole thing, because when I went through it, I actually made it a point not to look at the playoff teams, like who was going to end up with the playoffs seeding, and then at the very end I looked and I was like, oh, I have the Bears as the 7th seed. Why?
Yeah.
But it was just like, as I was doing it, I'm like, I just think they're better than this team, this team, this team, and this team, and they're going to win those games, and then all of a sudden they're 10-7, make the playoffs. So, if I could, I'd probably redo a couple things. But I do stand by some of the points that I was saying. It's a really cool site. I highly recommend you check it out. And I think it goes back 2 full years, and they just keep doing it every year. And they have some hockey playoff predictor as well, and college football one. So I would
that's
definitely
awesome.
check
I didn't
those
know that.
out.
Yeah.
The odds for the Bears to make the playoffs are probably pretty good. So lay down a little bit of a bet and thank Ian later.
There you go.
Yeah, with that NFC.
I want to ask you guys, did you guys take that all the way to the Super Bowl? Like, did you have a
we
Super
did.
Bowl?
We
So
did.
let me guess. Let me try to predict this. Jake, Bills, Eagles, based on what I saw you talk about on the show. Do I have it close? Do I have it right?
I had the Bills and Chiefs playing in the AFC Championship, the Bills winning that game. And then I had the Eagles and Vikings playing in the NFC Championship, and I had the Vikings winning.
Ooh,
So I
okay.
had Bills, Vikings in the Super Bowl, and I had to take the Bills to win it. Now, do I think it really is a possibility? Yeah, absolutely. I think the Vikings are really on the come up, and I get that they're sort of trashing a lot of players. They got rid of Delvin Cook. Alexander Madison's a very capable back. He's been playing a lot in this offense as it is because Delvin's always injured. And they end up drafting Jordan Addison as a replacement for Adam Thielen. They still have KJ Osborne there. TJ Hawkinson just became the highest paid tight end in football. So I love the Vikings. I think Kirk Cousins is gonna take that crown and put it on top of his head this year, and it's gonna be fun to watch.
All right. And then, Ian, if I'm predicting your Super Bowl matchup, because you're not so much of a homer as Jake, I'm going to say you're going to say Eagles versus Chiefs.
Ooh,
Rematch.
rematch. No, I'm definitely still a homer. I just unfortunately I don't have the Hawaiians available to be wearing every day. Otherwise, I would definitely be doing that. No, I had the Bills, and I actually had the Jags in the AFC Championship because the way it worked out, the Bills faced the Chiefs in the divisional round. I think they beat them. So I have the Bills going to the Super Bowl, and on the other side, I also had the Eagles Vikings, but I had the Vikings winning. Bills Vikings, Bills take it.
Wow, Vikings for both of you. Interesting takes, guys.
All right, let's get into this. The Vikings are like the Bills of the NFC. I mean, they have gone to 4 Super Bowls, not in a row, but they have lost all of them. So it would be kind of cool.
Yeah, that would be a good story there for sure. I can see the storylines there already. Let's get into some awards. So some of these awards, we'll talk about, your typical, your MVP, Defensive Player of the Year, Offensive Player of the Year, Rookie of the Year, Comeback Player of the Year. We'll talk about that next, but we have some internal awards that we want to kind of talk about and maybe prediction, since we're predicting a bunch of things. And some of these will be pretty easy. Some of them will make you think a little bit. So Jake, you came up with this list of these awards. Let's go through them real quick. So this one, to me, I mean, unless you say exclude Josh Allen, but Bills overall MVP, Mr. Podger, I mean.
Listen, I mean, it's hard not to say Josh Allen. But if there's anyone outside of Josh Allen who that guy could be, I'm gonna say it's a defensive player, and I'm gonna say it's Trey White. Comeback season, I'm talking him up. I'm ready for Trey White to be that all-pro corner he once was. He's coming back with a vengeance this year. Trey White's my guy.
Okay, Ian, outside of Josh, who would you take as who you predicting Bills' overall MVP for this season would be?
That's so funny you say that, Jake. I was looking through and I'm like, I definitely would pick a defensive player. And then as soon as you said Trey White, I'm like, yeah, I'm in total agreement. I think Trey White, or hey, even Micah Hyde is talking about comeback season. I think that he could definitely, he's getting up there in age, but his leadership knows no bounds. I could definitely see him taking that MVP.
Absolutely. Guys, check this out. This is the new backdrop here. Unfortunately, we can't have TVs on, so we don't want to get hit with copyright. They're not on right now, but I will have 6 TVs behind me. But I figured since I'm on my phone, I could at least take you over to this other spot here, you know?
It's pretty
Missing
cool.
out on this part.
Looking beautiful, man.
Thanks.
Love it.
I'm excited.
All right, the next award, again, this one's more of I think this one's pretty easy to guess, but leading rusher, but not just who's the leading rusher is, predict the yards and the touchdowns that leading rusher has. So, Ian, I'll throw it to you first.
So I think it has to be James Cook. I'm going to say low 1,000s, like 1,007 yards. And rushing touchdowns, I'd give him 8.
Ooh, okay.
Give him 8.
When's the last time we've had a 1,000-yard rusher, Jake?
Shady McCoy, I think it was 2016.
Shady. Yeah, I think it's definitely shady.
All right,
Or
well, that's interesting.
2015 maybe even. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll take a look.
Been a while.
It was a while
Well,
ago.
Jake's given his, all right, leading rusher, Jake, and yards and touchdowns for that leading rusher.
I definitely think James Cook's going to be the leading rusher. And it'll be a landslide. I think he will have – I don't know if I'm ready to say he's going to have 1,000 yards, but I'm ready to say he'll have over 1,500 all-purpose yards. So I'm going to say he's going to have 900 rushing yards, right on the nose, 900. And he's going to have 640 receiving yards.
Wow.
How about that?
Wow.
All
And
purpose, baby.
touchdowns, sir?
Touchdowns, I'm going to say he's going to have 10 total touchdowns. 6 of those will be rushing. 4 will be receiving.
All right.
Bold
So
prediction.
I'm with you, Jake. I don't think he gets to 1,000. I think Damian Harris, Latavius Murray eat into that. Both not so much Damian Harris, but Latavius Murray, I think, might be there a lot on third downs. He can catch the ball really well. He's that bigger guy. I think that eats into a little bit of those receiving yards, but I think a little bit under 900 yards rushing. I can agree with you. The total combined yards, maybe not that much. Touchdown-wise, I'm going to flip it. I'll say 4 rushing because I think Damian Harris and Latavius Murray are going to steal a lot of those inside the 5-yard line, maybe even inside the 10. But I think he can get to 10 because of his receiving abilities as well. 10 touchdowns total.
I like it. Very nice.
All right, Ian. Leading receiver, yards and receptions. Okay. Total receptions and yards.
I did look. 2017, Shady had 1,000 yards.
Okay.
2017, okay.
That was the last time. Well, I think it has to be Steph. Receptions. Whew, boy. I'm going to have to go look, I think, to see what he averages typically.
I think it's like around
All right.
120.
He's been over 100 every year.
Well, he was over 100 every year, but it was really that first year we had 127, but it's been low 100s. I'm going to say he is, I mean, obviously the primary target. Let's do 111. Let's do 111 for receptions. Let's put him in like very similar last year, like 1,450 yards. And I'm going to give him a big touchdown year. Let's go 14 touchdowns.
Wow, I love it.
So, Ian, you're obviously wanting to keep him happy. You're wanting to keep him happy.
I really do.
So, Jake, same question to you, sir.
Yeah, I definitely think it's going to be Steph. I'm going to say 112 catches, Ian, for 1,487 yards. And I'm going to say he has 9 touchdowns because I think Dalton Kincaid's going to carve into that a little bit this year.
He probably will.
He's going to catch 8 himself and be the second leading receiver in terms of touchdown receptions this year. But I do think, I'm going to say something, bold statement. It's going to be the first year since 2002 that the Bills will have 2 1,000-yard receivers. I think Gabe Davis, in a contract year, he's going to have over 1,000 yards this year receiving.
I mean, that's definitely something that could happen. Like, look, last year, even with the struggles that he had, I think he missed a couple games. Wasn't he in the 800s?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah,
So,
he had 836.
yeah. So you give him those games where He missed. He had a dinged up ankle. And yeah, I think you're right. Everything we've been hearing out of camp and preseason he's been Gabe Davis of a few years ago. So hopefully you drafted him. Did you draft him, Jake?
I didn't get him in actually I got him in our front yard league, Ian. I got him in that one.
Oh yeah.
Yesterday though, I got my board over here. I'm actually looking at it. Ended up getting Josh in the 3rd round, which I thought was pretty good value there. I got Dalton Kincaid in the 12th round. How about that? And then I ended up taking another former Bill and Zach Moss because I figured he probably would get some time with the Colts. Although, didn't he just break his arm or something like that? I don't know.
Something just happened with Zach, yeah.
It's Evan Hall and Deion Jackson's backfield, but you never know.
So I'm going to go with Steph getting 100 yards. 100 receptions. And they get that last reception late in the year to keep him happy because he's not happy if he doesn't get at least 100 receptions. And I think, what did he get yards last year, Ian? Was it like 1,400?
1426.
1426. So I definitely think there's going to be a step down there. So I'm going to say 1,100 receiving yards because same thing, Jake. I think there. Gabe Davis, you said, has a bigger year this year. Dalton Kincaid. I mean, we already talked about Cook out of the backfield. There's going to be a lot of mouths to feed. And I think you're going to see a slight dip.
Yep.
All right. And then you have Jake on your list here. Who leads our tight end room in receiving yards and the number of touchdowns? Go ahead, Jake.
It's a good question because Dawson Knox, just coming off a Pro Bowl year, like he's supposed to be the guy, but then we end up taking a 1st-round tight end, right? So Dalton Kincaid looks like he's going to be that guy. So I feel like for him, it's going to be – I'm going to say that he actually has less receptions than Dawson Knox, but he has more yards and more touchdowns. So I'm going to say Dawson Knox wins in terms of receptions. I think Dawson's going to go for 50 catches, low 500s. I'm going to say 520 yards, 3 touchdowns. Dalton Kincaid, I'm going to say 35 catches. I'm going to say 40 catches for 600 yards and 8 touchdowns.
Okay. Ian?
I think this is tough because Dalton Kincaid, although he is a tight end, they're trying to use him in a lot of different ways, putting him out in the slot and, even putting him out wide potentially. So even though I think that he will have more receiving yards than Dawson Knox, I mean, it's hard to call him a tight end sometimes with how athletic he is. But I definitely think he's going to overtake Dawson. Although he went to the Pro Bowl last year, he was not as good as it's actually kind of surprising that I'm looking at it. He had 587 yards 2 years ago and made the Pro Bowl with 517 and had 3 less touchdowns than made the Pro Bowl. Yeah. It's not necessarily because I think Dawson, I don't think he's like regressing or anything like that, but I just think Dalton Kincaid is going to pass him just purely on his athleticism. I'm going to give him, similar to you, Jake, with Dawson, I'm going to give Dalton 50 catches. I'm going to give him around, let's do like 700 yards. And I think because the yak's going to be higher because he won't be doing as many short routes. I think it's going to be a lot of like 4 seams. And yeah, I'm going to give him about 6 touchdowns, a little less than you said.
Nice.
All right. As far as receptions and yards, I'm going to go with Ian, but I'm going to predict that Knox has more touchdowns. Knox is going to be in that red zone, get a lot of those touchdowns. So I think he's going to have. What did Knox have last year as far as touchdowns, Ian? I know you got the stat line up there. He had 6. Okay. So I'm going to give him 6 again, and I'll say Kincaid has 5.
Nice.
Close.
Yeah, I like it.
All right. Next, sack leaders. And I guess it's sack leaders. So what is that, Jake? Like your top 2 sack folks?
Yeah, I'm going to say Greg Rousseau leads the team in sacks. He's going to have 12.5 sacks this year. And when Von Miller comes back, I think Von still puts up 10, right on the nose. 10 sacks. Yep.
All right, so Von comes back. Well, we're thinking
so 2 guys with 10-plus sacks. That's a bold statement, but I like it. Feel good about it.
So if everything works out, Von would come back in week 5. I still don't see that happen. I don't know. I just saw what you know what we saw last year with Trey White. Like, is he coming back this week? No. They didn't even bring him back to Thanksgiving, but we'll see. Ian, let me throw it to you, and then I'll give you my prediction there.
Yeah, I actually think it'll probably be Von ending up leading it.
Wow.
We're just not like, yeah, I don't know if Greg Rousseau is ready to take the double-digit sack lead there. I think I like your idea of Vaughn getting exactly 10. I don't really think anyone's going to get past that.
Wow.
What about Leonard Floyd? Where do you see Leonard Floyd? 7.5, 8?
7.5. Yeah, I was just gonna say 7.5, something like that.
Yeah.
He's gonna be 31. He's gonna eventually, once Vaughn comes back, he'll be in a situational type role, so it'll be a little different. His opportunities. So, yeah, 7.5 sounds good. Greg Rousseau, I actually think it's gonna be around the same 8 again.
Okay.
All right. For me, I'm going to see that steady climb from Epinesa at 6.5 last year. I think he elevates to 8 or 9.
Wow.
And I do not think Vaughn gets to 10, only because I'm overly cautious of like when they're going to bring him back. Right? If it's if it's week 5 and he's back, I'm with you. 10. If it's anything past that, I think he gets 8 or 9. So I guess what I'm saying is Epinesa could be your sack leader this year. Vaughn right there with him as well. And then Rousseau, a close second or third.
Love that.
Who we got out there? Who we got in the channel?
We got Wimp Donkey and then Tom. Always appreciate your support, sir.
14 sacks.
14. Wow.
That'd be a huge step. I mean, that would be fantastic. The defense would be so elevated to getting that kind of production.
That would be the most since what? Lorenzo Alexander from
probably
2016? Yeah.
Probably. I'd have to go look at that.
Mario Williams had a 14.5 sack year, I believe, with us.
Yeah, he did.
Yeah.
Definitely right on that.
All right, let's go to the interception leader. Throw it to you first, Ian.
Well, Jake backed Trey White, so I'm going to back Micah Hyde and say he gets the most picks.
How many?
And let's give him 6.
Love it.
Give him 6.
I like that.
All right, Jake, who do you have?
I'm gonna say 6, but it's Trey. I'm gonna stick with Trey. And listen, a whole lot. So 6 interceptions is extremely impressive with how he plays, and probably not throwing the ball to him a ton.
All right, I'm gonna predict a healthy Jordan Poyer is your guy at 6 interceptions on the year. He leads the team.
I mean, he was on pace last year to
he was.
Yeah.
Yep. So healthy Jordan Poyer, I think, takes that one. All right, final record prediction. I did our record predictions with Jake earlier in the season. I stick with it. I had him at 12-5. Jake?
I'm staying 13-4, baby.
Ian?
I like 12-5. Definitely like 12-5.
All right, and then let's wrap this up. By the way, last call. Get those last call for a drink. We're going to be wrapping this up soon. And again, if you're new to the channel, if you're still with us, you enjoy what you're seeing, we do this every Sunday night. We do this every Wednesday night. We have the Wednesday night tailgate, and we have the Sunday night Bills talk show. And we're going to be getting into the Jets and the Bills. Don't you worry. Wednesday and Sunday. We have 2 more shows before the Monday Night Football matchup, but we thought we'd bring you something kind of fun. Honestly, if we had to talk about the Jets and Bills for 3 straight shows, we could, but you'd start hearing repetitive things being said. So we don't want to do that to you. All right. So last awards. These are NFL awards. These are Comeback Player of the Year. These are MVP, Defensive Player, Rookie, blah, blah, blah. Let's get into some of them. So Ian, let me throw it to you first. MVP is Josh Allen. Is he finally going to get there? Can he do it?
Ooh. I think he comes in second, but I think Pat Mahomes takes it again.
Still Patty, huh?
Yeah.
Well, let me just say this. My son, who I've converted for just 1 year, because Josh Allen's on the cover of Madden 24, he says, Dad, I'll be the Bills' biggest fan this year, but they'll slip to number 2 unless Josh Allen wins the MVP or the Buffalo Bills win the Super Bowl. If one of those 2 things happen, my 11-year-old, by the way, he just turned 11 the other day, my 11-year-old is now forever a Buffalo Bills fan, and that will make his dad super proud. So let's go. I need one of these 2. Jake,
whatever it takes.
MVP, Mr. Josh Allen.
Yeah, I'm all for it. Let's do it. Let's ride the hype all day, baby. Josh Allen, MVP, first one.
All right. Comeback Player of the Year. Ian, I mean, I think this is an obvious choice, but let me throw it to you first. Who could be that Comeback Player of the Year for the Buffalo Bills?
Yeah, let's take a look. Actually, why don't you go throw it to Jake real quick? I got to throw the depth chart up real quick.
All right, go ahead, Jake.
I mean, it's got to be DeMar Hamlin. Come on, it's not going to be anyone else. I think there's zero chance that anyone even if he plays a single snap this year, which he will, it's got to be DeMar Hamlin. I'm ready to throw all my money on every bet that he's going to win comeback player of the year. There's no way it's not going to be anyone else. It's a beautiful story.
Vegas likes your pick there as well.
Yeah. What are the odds right now? Do you know?
I do not know, but I read it. I read it. Yeah. I don't know, a few weeks back, and it was like you'd have to put a lot of money to win anything. So let's just say that the odds aren't too good to make money off of that.
Right.
But the odds are good that he would get that. I would honestly, he's going to get some play time. He's probably fourth on the safety depth chart, right? Mm-hmm. Behind Taylor Rapp and the other two. So he'll get some play time, but just the fact that he's out on the field, just the fact that he's out there, and I don't know how many snaps he gets, but I mean, it's for me, it's a shoe in there. Yep. Ian, any disagreement there?
No, not at all. That's completely true. It's incredible. We're looking at him a year ago, thinking, just trying to get his get his life saved, and now he's back out there. It's unbelievable. Yeah.
I want to mention this from Red, White, and Bills. They are doing a show on the Nickel City Mafia Network. It's called The Red, White, and Ruthless, and that kicks off. And Sean, have you guys decided what night you're going to go on? I think you guys were talking about Saturday nights. Let me know on the channel. But yeah, check these guys out, and they're fantastic. They both have their own channel, Red, White, and Bills. As you see it right there, get on over, give them some love, hit that subscribe button for them, and Go Bills Podcast is for Brett. They've been on our channels. You guys have seen him before. 8:30 on Saturday. So
there it is. Book it.
And we're going to see you this Saturday. Sean, is that when it starts? Hopefully. Good stuff. All right. Next award. Well, let's talk about, we do have some offensive rookie of the year. The only one I think we could have would be Kincaid.
Mm-hmm. Any chance we could throw Osiris Torrance in the ring for that? Wouldn't that be incredible?
I would love that.
Lineman?
Yeah, I would love that.
Would be amazing. It's never going to happen, but that would be awesome.
Yeah, so Kincaid, to me, in order to get that, even close to that, Jake, we did a show where we went through, a lot of folks have said, the tight ends just don't, rookie tight ends just don't get a lot of targets their first year or have that big of an impact. But we did a show where there were a good number of them. There was a decent number. I can't think of the ones off the top of my head, but there was a good number that had close to 90, 100 targets. That's what I think it would. It would have to be something like that. The targets you guys talked about, the 50 targets a year. If Kincaid hits that, I don't think he's going to be rookie of the year. That's my thought. He'd have to go a lot bigger.
Yeah, there's just too many other skill position guys. You're talking. There's 2 first-round running backs in Bijan Robinson, Jahmyr Gibbs. You got some insane receivers in this class too. I just feel like he's so far down on the totem pole. He would have to put up Rob Gronkowski numbers from 2011, to even get consideration. And that's it's just a stretch. I would love for it to happen, but I feel like there's no chance any Bill wins that award this year. If it's my opinion and who I think is actually going to win it, looking at the just looking at the teams across the league, I don't want it to be a quarterback, so I'm going to go with a skill guy. I'm going to say my boy Zay Flowers.
That's who I knew you were going to say. That's who I was going to say if you hadn't said his name.
Yeah.
All right, so Jake, throw out some of these other NFL awards that you want to talk about. You think maybe Bills could have a contender for it?
I think there's always a chance. Defensive player of the year. You look at some of our guys. We have the best safety tandem in the league. Jordan Poyer was on pace last year to have he was getting an interception every game almost, right? But then he gets injured and he's out for the year. I know he had a bet with Pat McAfee that Pat would pay millions of dollars or something to his charity if he got 12 interceptions on the season, which was very possible at the time. I think he had 4 picks in 4 games, so pretty insane. I'm not going to say one of those guys wins it, but I'm going to stand by Trey White again. I just feel like he's ready to have that year. A couple of years ago, he's an All-Pro corner. He's first-team All-Pro, and
he's killing it, and then he gets injured, and I think people have just sort of forgotten about him. They buried him down the totem pole. Our secondary, actually, in general, is really good. And I know there's question marks at the cornerback 2 position, but, like, we got some dogs on this defense, man. Like, we have some really good football players. Taylor Rapp playing the 3rd safety position. Are you kidding me right now? Like, and I know we're supposed to be talking defensive player of the year, but I'm just saying there are a lot of guys around Trey White that are going to make him even better. And I just feel like if there's anyone that has a chance at it, it's probably him.
Let me ask you this, Jake. Let me follow up with that. If he has that type of year, could he also be candidate for comeback player of the year?
I would say so. I feel like probably not as much as DeMar just because of the situation, but he'd probably be thrown in that ring. You know, he played the back half of the season last year. He didn't even play half the games last year of the regular season. So yeah, I think it's viable.
All right. So Ian, your thoughts on defensive player of the year, and Jake, do they have a offensive rookie of the year and defensive rookie of the year?
Yeah.
Okay,
yes,
so
they
they have
Yep.
both.
Yep.
All right. So Ian, I'll start with you. Anybody defensive player of the year potential for you?
Yeah, even though I said that Micah Hyde is going to be, in my opinion, like, make a really nice comeback this year, I can't disagree with Jake with Trey White. I definitely think that he has been left off a lot of people's radar because of his injuries, and I definitely see he has the potential to do that, especially if he gets more than 6 interceptions, like we were saying. If he can get up to that 9-10 range, man, like that can get he can run away with something like that. But that would probably be it. I mean, really, Dorian Williams is the only one we have a shot at for defensive rookie of the year. And unless he takes a huge step and they finally play him at middle linebacker, I don't see that happening. There's way too much top end defensive talent in this draft.
Yeah. I agree.
All right. I do have a question on that because I'll forget if I don't ask you guys now. So we signed Christian Kirksey to the practice squad.
Yes.
Ian, who's starting for the Buffalo Bills at middle linebacker week 1?
I would, if it was Christian Kirksey, I would love that. I've always, for whatever reason, been a huge Christian Kirksey fan. He is just an absolute tackle eater. I mean, the dude has racked up so many tackles over his career, and I think that he's just a really solid leader on the defensive line or unit. So, depending on what's going on with Terrell Bernard, but he just hasn't played. So, I could see Christian Kirksey taking the spot. I definitely can.
Yeah, I can too.
Jake, do you agree with that?
I think it should be him. It should be him. If you're not going to put Dorian Williams out there, it should be him. Terrell Bernard, hamstring issue, ease him back into the game plan. And I think if it comes down to Tyrel Dotson or Terrell Bernard, I'm Terrell Bernard all day. I've seen enough of Tyrel Dotson. I like Tyrell. Good dude. He's worked hard. He's earned his shot. But I just don't think he's the answer there. So I'm all about starting Christian Kirksey.
Do you think there's any way, though, because Kirksey was just signed, you think there's any way there's someone else other than Dotson, at least for week 1, starting?
I do. I still think there's a chance that Christian Kirksey is the guy.
Okay.
I mean, he's on the practice squad now, but they're probably going to wait to see, with inactives and all that good stuff, who they're going to elevate, like if there's a chance to elevate him, bring someone back down, or, whatever it may be. So I think they're going to wait a little bit on that.
Yeah, depending on what's going on with Terrell Bernard, I mean, if he becomes inactive, I could totally see them bringing Christian up and just throwing him in the start.
So if Bernard is healthy, let's say the hamstring's all good now, you're going to bypass him and go to Kirksey, or you're going to give him a shot?
I still think Christian Kirksey's more game ready than any of those guys, to be honest.
Sure.
He's just a better linebacker.
100%.
He's more proven. Yeah.
100%. I mean, he's comfortable with calling the plays. He played a full season last year. I think it was his first season that he played a full season since like 2017. But when he plays, man, saw some film. One of the other podcasts had a lot of film on him. He just looked like that person you want in there. So I agree. All right, well, let's wrap this up with one more award. Jake, is there anything else that we didn't talk about, an NFL award that you think one of our Bills could be up for?
I wish there was a long snapper of the year award. Listen, you want to talk about some diversity. The internet went insane when the Bills released Reed Ferguson, the longest tenured Buffalo Bill. I think we got to find a way to get Reed Ferguson on our show. So if you guys watching out there could just clip this out, which I think we should. Clip this out. We're going to spread it. We're going to try to send this to Reed. We're going to get him on the show because we love long snappers here. He wears number 69. He embodies what Buffalo is all about. And his tweet was legendary, by the way, when he actually did resign back. He posted the Wolf of Wall Street scene with his face over Leonardo DiCaprio's. And it's the scene where he says, "I'm not effing leaving." And it's great. It's just fantastic. I mean, one of the most legendary tweets I've ever seen in my entire life. So we got to find a way to get him on the show, plain and simple. I mean, I talk about him enough as it is. You know how much I love special teams. That would be my only other award. But, yeah, I mean, long snapper of the year. Reed Ferguson, all day. Longest tenured Buffalo Bill.
Love it. All right, Ian. So final thoughts, man. Let's close this thing out. It's been an hour. You were asking us before the start of the show. We said an hour, hour and a half. But here we are, an hour and 45 minutes. We just never know. But Ian, close us out with some closing thoughts.
Yeah, since I didn't pick Josh to win MVP, I think I'd have to put him. He definitely would be a candidate for Offensive Player of the Year in that case. I think that he could snag that for sure. Hey, it was a lot of fun. An hour and a half can go by real quickly when you're looking at all those records and you're trying to figure out why exactly you chose what you chose. But yeah, I had a blast. Thank you again for having me on. I really appreciate it.
It was a good time, man.
Yeah, anytime, Ian, anytime. Jake, closing thoughts?
Well, I just want to say, I think Ian and I need to do more shows together just talking about just the obscurities that we love with football, because we'll sit down on the couch and we'll just have a conversation for hours on hours, just talking about like these random players and just stuff that we find so interesting that other people probably don't. Like Ian and I, we still play ESPN NFL 2K5, the greatest football game to ever be created. And we literally pretend like we're coaches, and we make believe like we are legit coaches for these teams that we start franchises with. We sign a full roster of players. We literally write down on a notepad when a player drops a pass in a video game, Mike. And then we got to go to cut day, and we have like this narration that goes on in our own head. We talk about it. We talk about it like we're coaches.
Oh my God.
And we like almost fake like we're having a conversation with the player. We're psychopaths. But I think people need to see this side of us because we're here for it. And I think there's a niche crowd that probably appreciates the hell out of it. We just love football. And obviously the Bills are really, I mean, they bring us so much freaking joy, and football in general brings us so much joy. So there's a lot of things. Like we just did a Sporkle quiz a couple weeks ago. Well, it was a while ago, but nonetheless, we've also been doing the Dynasty Daddy thing, the grid thing. It's freaking awesome. But the Sporkle thing, it was like name every single receiver to record 1,000 receiving yards since 2000. And we got 100% on it. And it's like, you are one of a million people that ever do this. It was freaking wild. But that's the stuff that we pride ourselves on. We just enjoy the hell out of it. It's just a beautiful thing. Football nerds at our core.
You're not so much unlike me when I do play video games with my son and I'm playing Madden. I mean, I'm doing play-by-play.
Yeah.
He like looks at me like, Dad, what is going on? I try to throw him off. I do it a lot to try to throw him off because he whips my butt. He's so much better at it than me.
Yeah.
But I try all kinds of things to get in his head. Womp Docky says Ferguson for life. I agree. Joe Ferguson for life. Joe Ferguson for life.
Ooh, now that's a good Ferguson. I mean, Joe was honestly the best quarterback in Bills history till Jim Kelly came along, right?
Yeah,
he was.
Yeah.
Until that guy Josh Allen came along too.
I hope Womp Donkey. Do you know Joe? Do you know Joe Ferguson? I hope so. But I said that because I knew he was talking about Reed.
Yeah, and that's your guy, Mike. That's who you grew up
Joe
on.
Ferguson, man. When I was out in the streets playing street football, touch football, I was Joe Ferguson throwing that ball.
Do you think he's better than Jack Kemp?
Man, I wish I would saw Kemp, and I wish I would have saw some of those games. I haven't even seen any film, but I have to say no. I'm only going to say that because
statistics would say yes.
Statistics
but,
would.
Accolades, no, because I think Jack Kemp is like a 5 or 6 time Pro Bowler.
Yeah, exactly. So I can't disrespect the 60s just because I haven't seen it. So, and I shouldn't even give it to Kemp. So I'm going to say Jake. I don't know. I'd have to go watch the film on some Kemp.
Yeah,
but Joe Ferguson, loved him. Played for the Bills a lot of years. All right, guys, that's kind of it. If you're new to the channel, you stuck around this long, thank you so much. We greatly appreciate it. The bar is now closed, And thank you all for closing up real quick as far as those tabs, those bills. But give us a like, give us a comment, tip your staff, and drop a nickel on that subscribe button. And we appreciate it. We'll see you Wednesday night tailgate. I think, Jake, you are not going to be able to make it, but I do plan on having... Yeah, another wedding. My God, it must be the world record for the last year. What is it, 14, 15 now we're going on?
It's insanity. I don't know.
Crazy.
I mean, I'm honored, to be honest with you, but it is a lot, I got to say. It's a marathon.
Guinness Book of Records has called, and they're looking for you, Jake. So check them out, man.
Heck yeah.
Anyhow, we're planning on having a Jet rep on here on Wednesday night. And, of course, Jake and I will be back on Sunday night to talk about that. You know, it's going to be fun on Sunday, Jake, because we'll get to see what happened throughout the weekend, talk a little bit about that, and then, of course, the big matchup the next day. So going to be great. So everyone have a good one. Thank you, everyone. And let me go over here and end it with a little fun outro. Here we go.
Bills.
Bills Mafia, circling the wagon, you feel me? Nickel City Mafia, let's go!
Josh Allen, quarterback supreme, leading the Bills to the top of the league. Weapons by his side, and that defense hella mean. Buffalo's got a team that must be seen. I said Buffalo's got a team that must be seen. Yes. Come on. J17 leading the charge. Buffalo Bills on the rise. Passing game on point. Ain't no mirage. Happening right in your eyes. Ain't no surprise. Buffalo stacking the QB. Stephon Diggs something in the past. Group cars in having go deep. We're circling wagon. Just wait and see. From Wyoming to the NFL, Josh Allen's got the skills. Air raid, deep ball, touchdown for real. Leading the Bills to playoff thrills. Real time, this ain't no drill. Cold game, we're giving them chills. Check the score, now you know the deal.
Nickel City Mafia.